pretty much there. Good morning, everyone. If I can call the meeting, okay? Are there any public comments today? Hearing none, I'm gonna move to get approval of the minutes of the October 6th.
I'll move.
Make a motion. Well, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the biggest thing we have today is the award of contract 20-06 for the customer service back office system to Emos Technology, and at a cost of $1.150 million per year for the next 5 years. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Let's have a little bit of discussion, okay? Would you like to take it over?
Sure. I just wanted to notify the board too that the annual cost that was provided on the cover sheet was incorrect. It's actually, and a corrected one has been provided in your binder. So the number that you had is actually a little bit different.
I mean, three. Sorry about that.
No problem. So the Easy Pass customer service, we went out for back office in 2011. So RTVA is not the same tolling agency that it was 10 years ago. At that point, we didn't even have the open road tolling lanes installed. We still just had all gated lanes. In addition to that, we are now all electronic tolling, and we also are being the back office for Department of Transportation entries. Since 2011, when we last went out for RFP for a back office, we've taken many processes in-house to provide savings to the authority, such as we handle our own production printing, run our own mail house, our staff is all in-house, as well as image review processing.
Catherine, can I ask you to just take down your mask while you're discussing?
Sure. Sorry.
Can hear you better from up here.
Sure. In addition to taking those processes in-house, we began the traffic tribunal process in 2015 with the enforcement, working with everybody up there who's been wonderful to us. In addition to that, we created legislation with the DMV in Rhode Island to do holds and non-renewals for toll violators that are after a certain threshold. RTVA also acts as a liaison for all Rhode Island residents who have been charged incorrectly both in-state or out-of-state due to duplicate license plate issues. A lot of Rhode Island residents, because of the number of issued plates we issue, the low number plates, will actually get charged out-of-state violations that don't belong to them. So we have come up with an agreement with the DMV. They've given us full access to their system, and we act as a liaison for all Rhode Island residents, whether they have an Easy Pass or not. So the current, the last thing we also instituted was reciprocity with the state of Massachusetts, which means toll violators both in Rhode Island and Mass will have holds and non-renewals placed on their license and registration if they have unpaid tolls. So those are some of the changes that we've done with the Easy Pass back office in the last 10 years. So currently, the current and the new back office system supports both RTVA transactions and RIDOT, and that includes account management for Easy Pass accounts, transaction processing, which is inclusive of electronic toll collection and image-based transactions, and also transactions that are exchanged with all of the other agencies that are part of the Easy Pass group. They also support image review right now. We're a backup image review application for Department of Transportation. If something were to happen with their subcontractor, we would always pick up the slack for them. This also includes reporting and website management. So the current system we're using is approximately 10 years old, and at the time it was the latest and the greatest. We had tremendous flexibility from the system that we had prior. We were able to service our customers in a much better way, but after 10 years we need to make some updates and changes. Technology has advanced, and now we're lagging in it. So this RFP was issued in July 2021 with proposals due in September. Since then, we've been reviewing them, evaluating them, conducted interviews and reference checks as well. And during this process, much of the scoring was based on quality over pricing. In fact, 70 of the points were dedicated to the quality. We didn't look at the pricing until we evaluated the bids. It was inclusive of preparation, evaluation, design, migration, testing, implementation, and then final system acceptance. Both RITV and RIDOT need many updates to the customer service aspect of our current account management system. And for the RITVA side, we really need to update our software to better accommodate our transition to all electronic tolling, as the software was not originally designed to handle those type of invoices. Over the next year, we'll have to make a lot of changes to accommodate that. So since RITVA's transition to all electronic tolling as of a couple days ago, all of our revenue now depends on electronic toll collection and image-based transactions. The image review application we currently have is a little bit outdated. There's a lot of new tools available, such as audit features, bringing back images that were projected incorrectly, and certain things that just weren't available at the time. We received 4 bid proposals, 3 of which were narrowed down to be interviewed. The selection committee determined that Amovis provided the highest quality and the best overall value to the authority. They have proven their performance for the Pell Bridge and all the RIDOT tolling gantries. Data migration is which includes, if we were to move from one company to another company, which is certainly possible, we did it before, the risks are much higher from going to a system that's not the same. And for us, it looks at account and financial history, violation history of customers, contacts with customers, everything like that. And the learning curve for Amovis is not there. They already know what they're doing for both RIDOT and RITVA. We also felt that Amovis had the most experience within the EasyPass interagency group. This was very important to us. Some of the other people who sent in proposals were subcontractors for EasyPass groups. They had worked for us in the past 10 years ago, but none of them had a full back office, which means account management, invoice processing, transaction processing. None of them had that. Amovis has 2 of the agencies that are within the EasyPass group as their full back office. We thought that they best addressed RIDOT's needs by providing separate systems. This is not a requirement. As RIDOT came on board after our software was up and running, at the time we only had the option to build their system separate from ours. But we actually found, and we did not, like I said, we didn't require this in the RFP. They could present it to us however they wanted to. But we felt having the segregated systems was safer. The reason being is that RITVA may have more frequent updates and releases to fix things in our account management system, and we wouldn't want anything to negatively impact the RIDOT system, and having them separate, you mitigate that risk to affect both systems at the same time. We felt that the reporting was very good, and we've been promised, business analysts, that's 3 dedicated people. So all of the proposals did involve having a business analyst, but Amovis actually provided us with 3 people, which amounts to half of a full-time employee for a year. So we felt that was above and beyond. The other thing that they offered, which only one other proposer did, was savings on future EasyPass ICD changes. And what that is an interface control document, and it's how we talk to all the other agencies and exchange monies. Anytime that there's an update, Amovis said they will perform this at no cost to us. The last time we got an estimate on an IAG update, which is required for us to exchange, was $160,000. In addition to that, Amovis also offered no-cost future changes to DMV interfaces. So I'm not sure how many of you were here in 2019, but we had to pay $35,000, both RIDOT and RITVA, so that we could access the Massachusetts R&V registry because they decided to upgrade their system. So this is another potential cost savings that we have down the road so that we can continue to get the direct access to certain states. We did include in the RFP that they had to have 5 direct access hookups currently with 10 in the future. But to have this other part in here that says we're not going to be charged for it at all is really it's a nice thing. Does it happen often? No, it's only happened to us once in the last 4 years, but it still is a cost savings.
Katie, one other thing that I think, if I missed it, if you could just mention that the actual monthly fee is going to be reduced.
Oh, sure. So there's a couple things. The monthly fee that we pay currently now is $55,150. Moving forward with the Movis, it will actually be a little bit less. And if you go by the numbers that are included in the spreadsheet with your backup, it comes out to about $145 less per month. But that number also includes potential additional work over the 5-year contract. So if you back out that price of $430,000, will actually be, each agency, both RIDA and RTDA, will be paying $3,700 less per month in maintenance than we do now.
Yes.
Are you done?
Yes?
No. I have a couple of questions. First, I think you just answered it. Is the cost that was submitted by the winning bidder within your budget?
Yes.
So you have the money to be able to pay for this, right? In the RFP process, in the original RFP to these companies, was this scoring system spelled out explicitly?
Yes, that image that you have there was in the RFP.
So they knew the division between pricing and quality.
And Jeff actually wants to step in and determine how we did the 30 points, which were the possible points that they could have earned for the pricing.
But there so there was a formula for the pricing.
Correct.
Was that part of the RFP also? Did the bidders know what the formula would be so that they knew what the distribution of pricing would have been?
They know that the max, the lowest price would get the max of the 30 points.
Right.
And then we follow the state of Rhode Island's calculation on how do you award the.
So the bidders had the information to know, the knowledge, the ability to know how the pricing was going to be ranked in terms of distribution of points. Okay.
And all of the points were possible points.
All the points were,
Possible. So for the quality, there were 70 possible points.
No, I get it.
Oh, okay.
I get it. Okay. So the bidders knew what the scoring system would be. They knew how the scores were going to be determined in each of the categories for quality. They knew the value of the DBE points. And they knew through DOA's normal distribution of pricing, they knew how the price points are going to be determined. Okay. Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
I just wanted to chime in with what Director Alvini said, is that I've been on a lot of selection committees, specifically with the DOT and other agencies. And I liked the way this was done in the RFP, and it was very clear to the bidders, the proposers, what was, how the balance was to be struck in terms of the selection. So I compliment the staff on how that was put together.
Good job.
Well, as you know, we did have a letter that came through yesterday from P Square asking us to consider, okay, their concerns about the process. And I want Lori to kind of bring that to focus. She and I talked about it briefly before the meeting, and I think they have a good handle on it, put it that way.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we received this letter from one of the other proposers yesterday, P Square. We only got it yesterday, but we've already gone through it quite thoroughly, several times already. We would like to provide a thoughtful response and a comprehensive response to the issues that they've raised. We already are satisfied. You've heard many of the answers to the issues they've raised. So we would like the time to do that, but we don't want to lose any time in moving forward with this contract. So what I would ask is that the board consider voting to award, since that's a business decision, and that's appropriate for the board, but subject to our providing from me and from the selection committee, a detailed response to this letter.
So I have a question about that. I didn't read the letter in detail. I kind of skimmed through it. Has the chief purchasing agent at DOA seen that letter?
The chief purchasing agent at DOA has not, but I am the chief purchasing agent under our bylaws, I believe, and under the state law.
Okay.
I am designated as the chief purchasing agent. And I did review what the selection committee did, and I asked many, many questions, and I asked some of the questions.
Could that,
we certainly have
could that be
covered these
considered a
topics.
protest, formal protest?
Well, we contacted council yesterday and discussed that. We certainly know that most, their request is that we consider not voting today. That was the request at the end of the letter. Most bid protests, and most
Did they
attorneys.
say they protest?
They don't, they did not say this is a protest pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 37-2.
Do they need to say they protest in order for it to be a protest?
I think for the purposes of state bidding statute, they should have indicated that it's a protest under the statute, and essentially.
I certainly respect both of your expertise as attorneys. Do you think it would be worth it just to fly this by purchasing agent? A purchasing agent at DOA deals with these kinds of letters like on a daily basis. It's not like here you get one maybe every 6 months or a year or so, but they deal with them on a daily basis, and they know how to parse the wording to see if this is heading toward any dispute that could be that could tie this whole system up.
My thought is if we essentially treated it as a protest and respond to it in the same manner we would respond if they had used the word protest and said,
Right.
this is a protest, I think
Okay.
it's going to get a substantive response.
Yep.
It's not going to be something that we say, hey, it doesn't have the word protest, so we're not going to
Okay.
respond to it.
All right. Are the companies that responded, do you give them the ability to come in kind of post-game for an assessment of their scoring? In other words, can the companies come in after the award? Of course, you don't want to do it before the award, but after the award, come in and get kind of an interview, post-award interview, where they can assess what may be some of their shortcomings for the future. Do you do that?
We have not done that.
But I think that the letter in response, I took this letter as
A
exactly
request for
that
that
request,
kind of
a
thing.
request for
Well,
that kind of
it'd be premature to
feedback.
do it before the award, right? You generally give those kinds of reviews after the award. You don't want it to muck up the procurement process or the propriety of the procurement process. So, according to statute, you would be the chief purchasing agent.
Right.
That would make that decision.
And my plan is to respond as if it were a protest, treat it as a protest, even though that word is not
And
used.
your opinion at this point is that the protest is what? Unfounded or founded?
Lacking in merit.
Okay.
We've addressed every issue.
Gotcha.
I am very comfortable that the selection committee took into consideration the proper factors and that this was
So
not
they're just-
arbitrary or capricious or
Yeah.
or
So their
otherwise under the
dispute is
standard.
what, the manner in which the points were determined? Or is it whether or not they were apportioned what they think are the appropriate number of points?
If I had to summarize their message to us, it's that they think we unfairly considered Emovis as the incumbent. We do not believe that we unfairly considered Emovis as the incumbent.
Well, let me ask you something. Are they alleging that any of the information that's provided in any of these scoring would have given Emovis a proprietary advantage because of their existing work? I mean, I'm looking at the subject areas, the firm's qualifications, the project approach, the proposed project implementation schedule. I mean, if any of these companies wanted to look at the existing contract between you and Imovis, they would have had the ability to come in and ask for that information prior to submitting their bid, right?
That information's on our website.
So it's all
The
very
first
transparent.
2011, that's all online.
And the methodology is all online, right?
Correct, the scoring.
And well, not just not just the scoring, but but Imovis's work product is all available to any of the other bidders to look at, right? Their work product.
They had asked for it.
Yep. And they didn't,
But that is not online, so their software.
but they could have asked for it and got,
Correct, correct,
and they didn't ask for it.
correct.
So many of the questions I saw them ask had to do with information that if they wanted it before they bid, to see how Imovis was conducting their work for you, they could have asked you and you would have given it to them during the RFP process, right?
Yes.
We had a pre-bid meeting, we allowed for questions.
And they had an opportunity at that point to ask those
Absolutely.
questions.
May I ask a question?
And did they ask any of the questions?
Well, there were lots of questions asked that were all answered.
I have a question for legal. You reviewed this
It did.
and you feel comfortable?
I feel comfortable that, that what I think makes sense for the board is to essentially authorize, the executive director to move forward after after this, if it's a protest, has been dealt with.
But it is, I think you said it is not a protest, but you're
Yeah,
going to
I
treat
would
it as,
I
you're gonna
think-
treat it as if it
As
was.
out of abundance of caution. I
And
think
so
we
when you
treat it as-
respond, when you respond to this, you're gonna respond to it as if it were a
Correct.
protest, correct? Okay.
In your opinion of the protest is that it is unfounded?
Correct.
Okay.
And
But
I
also, in fairness to the staff, as you know, it's, the protest, to me, should have been filed earlier than it was. But I think in fairness to the process, the staff should have an opportunity to sort of dig through the facts and make a determination, and then the executive director can move forward with that.
I have a comment too, because Laurie and I always talk before the board package goes out, and I saw this maybe a week or so ago, and my first response to Laurie was, exactly why, okay, are we awarding this to the highest bidder, okay? She went through a lot of what Catherine just went through, okay, explaining to me all of the positives in doing this, and the fact that for us this is new, okay? We don't want to guess at it. We want to do it right. We want to do it right the first time around. And so, you know, and I trust the people who were involved in the selection process, that they know a lot more about, you know, what needs to be done than I do. So I really felt very comfortable, okay, with the decision, because, you know, the accountant in me says, you don't go for the high, why are you going out for a bidding process if you're going to pick the highest one, you know, this sort of thing. So the accountant in me just said, what are we doing this for? And Laurie went through step by step a lot of what Catherine said. In fact, she said it, Catherine said it in even more detail, as to why we would do this. Okay? And I think I'm very comfortable myself with the decision process. And as long as they feel they can respond to each one of these complaints and concerns, okay, by P Square, I think we should move forward, because if we don't move forward, we're gonna hold up this whole process. And that's not gonna be to our advantage.
Yeah, so it's probably not wise just to move forward on the basis of not wanting to hold up a process, because procurement law is pretty precise in the state. Procurement law does allow for this kind of evaluation bid to take place. We do it all the time at DOT. Particularly in design build kind of projects of that. Basically, this is the equivalent of a design build. And on certain projects like this one, quality sometimes more important than price, although price is always a factor. And I think the weight that they gave this is appropriate, and the assessment was certainly appropriate. I agree with you. The only thing that concerns me a bit is in what order should we progress? Typically, if there's a protest filed, historically what I've seen happen is that the protest is answered definitively. If there is a valid protest, then the procurement process is stalled or redone, or some resolution to that protest has to take place. If it's not, if it's determined not to be, then the award is made. Formally, the award is made. So, my only concern would be placing one before the other. In other words, placing the answer to the protest take place after the award of the contract.
And that's why my thought would be that the board would authorize Laurie to move forward after the protest has been, and again, I'm using the term protest, I'm not sure it qualifies, we're gonna treat it that, but authorizing her to move forward after that has been responded to and dealt with in an appropriate way, assuming, as we anticipate, that there will be a determination that the protest is without merit.
So a motion would be to allow the executive to make the award subject to a finding that the protest is
Correct.
invalid.
Is invalid, correct.
And if not, then what?
She can't award the contract.
Not to award.
She can't award, obviously. If there's a conclusion that the protest had merit, we're.
Okay. But the inverse doesn't have to be stated in the motion.
Agreed.
Okay. So, I don't know if anybody has any
So
other.
can we proceed on that basis?
So I'll make a motion that we allow the agency to award the contract subject to a finding that this protest is invalid.
I have a question, just because there was a motion made and seconded before that, so we need to rescind the first motion or amend it to meet this motion?
Yes. I think
No.
that's what we have to do.
Okay, make a motion to rescind the original motion.
Yes.
Right,
So we
accept.
rescind. Okay, all in favor of
Aye.
rescinding the original?
Aye.
Okay, and
And I
then,
made a motion, as I stated before, to award, allow the agency to award the contract to the best evaluated firm, Immovis, subject to a finding by the chief purchasing agent that the protest is invalid.
can I get a second to that?
So,
Okay,
But,
okay.
but there's no protest.
Oh, so, yeah, subject to, maybe change the wording to a subject to a response, okay?
Well, hold on. Didn't you determine that this would be considered a protest?
We're gonna treat it as a protest.
Okay, then,
The
all right.
statute requires that we respond in writing within 2 weeks. We
Yeah.
would definitely be doing that.
Okay.
And you wouldn't award until that response is made?
Correct.
The determination and the response.
There you go, perfect.
and we, the board, will get a copy of the response.
Yeah.
You bet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we make sure we get a copy of that, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so we have a new motion, okay, made, can I get a second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, so that's gonna take a little bit of time and effort out of an otherwise very hectic time for this, agency. Now, Eric, capital projects, just a quick summary.
Sure.
We got cooked up on this a little bit too long.
That's all right. So I can breeze through a lot of these pretty quickly. We've got the one out in front of us that is the biggest one right now. So I'm gonna take bridge electrical and communication upgrades together with the ATMS bridge safety and video analytics because they are enabling projects for each other. We're finishing up fiber optic terminations and work on Mount Hope. We have finished that work on Warp, and we have actually entered the testing phase of the video analytics. So as of this week, the operations center is now up in the room with the video wall as an operations center, headed by Steve Cahill. It is no longer part of tolling anymore because we've now transitioned out front, so I'll get into that when we're in a couple minutes. So we're training the TMTs that we now have. We have that new position as in operations. We're training them on the rollout of this system. So it's actually producing events that are popping up on the screen based on stopped vehicles. You know, so it's in a learning phase, so to speak, the computer system. So it's picking things up, and our operators are saying whether it's a false event or whether it's true. So it's actually learning. So as the events are coming up, it's becoming smarter, basically, the AI on the system. Mount Hope will follow as soon as the fiber optic work is finished and we have a couple of cameras to put up, then we'll start to roll that out into Mount Hope as well, and we'll have both bridges up and operational for the system. But it's actually nice that we have just one kind of train the TMTs on right now. The biggest thing is the phase 1 AET conversion out front. So as of basically 11 p.m. on Thursday night, we took the last toll. Donald Richardson took the toll. He was the longest running employee of the agency, having worked here since before the bridge was completed, Newport Bridge. He took the last toll at 11 p.m., just before 11 p.m. We went basically full electronic. The following morning, we ended up finalizing the setup that you see out there right now. So right now we're utilizing lanes 1 and 12, which go through the existing plaza, and were automated actually not last year, the year before during COVID, when COVID started. And we're using what would actually exist as lane 6 and 7 within the existing ORT. Those are being utilized as all electronic as well. Aetna will now proceed with phase 2 of this implementation, which will be converting the ORT area within the barrier to 2 lanes each direction. So they've got to do some striping eradication, some striping work, some signage work. That will all happen on or before December 10th. And then lanes 1 and 12 will be deactivated. They won't be deactivated electronically, but they'll be taken out of commission for now and be reserved for emergency use only. So all of the irons that you see out there will go away. It'll be replaced with concrete barriers. So there will be no decision-making process by drivers. They will come off the bridge in a 2-lane fashion and continue in a straight 2-lane throughway right through the existing ORT. It'll be a much smoother design than what you see right now. This is just for about another month or so. And I think it's been going well so far. We're making some adjustments to some camera aiming points today, and you know, we keep monitoring to see how the equipment works. But the crew pulled it off. You know, we had a few bumps along the way that we dealt with, but ultimately we got it done. And I think we're all pretty pleased with the operation so far. That was a big feat, I think, for everybody involved. And then outside of that, just a real quick update on Jamestown. We're about to finish the guardrail and railing painting. They'll be finished actually at the end of the week. Frank notified me yesterday that we will be reducing the number of painters by the end of the week because I mean, if you look at them, they're almost at the abutment right now. They're starting to do the other side, the north railing, just doing some touch-up work to vehicular pits since last year. And also they're finishing sealing all of the curbing and sidewalk sealant on that side as well. And they've been doing that sealant on the south side. So it'll be the railing painting, the guardrail painting, and we've got the joints all sealed on the curbing and sidewalk. So that'll be wrapping up. And we've got some bridge inspections going on. Jamestown bridge inspection is done. I'm just waiting for I'm sorry, the report came in since the last time. We're actually just starting the health inspection as of last week for the approach spans, and we'll be next week, the beginning of, the end of this month, since we're in November already, we'll be starting the interim inspection on Mount Hope, which is basically an update to the routine inspection for all the problem areas that we're down there. And I think that's Okay.
Thank you.
Unless anyone has any questions.
Any questions? Okay, my main concerns is I don't think we've heard anything about the grants for the Mount Hope yet, and I'm hoping, okay? And the other thing that I'm concerned about now that we're all automated and cars are just flying through here without a need to stop for anything, whether or not we'll get cameras on the bridges or something for the speeding issues, okay, that we face too. That's another to-do that I'd like to see something done on, put it that way. Okay, so Jeff, I think you're up now for the financial summary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As always, there's two financial reports at the summary level. One is compared to prior year, and one is compared to the budget. I'm not going to really talk about prior year because it's COVID year and the numbers look really weird, but I do have explanation if anybody wants to go over those. So I'm going to focus on versus budget, and I also want to give you a quick update on some of these versus 2019 as well. So it's kind of how we're doing versus pre-COVID. So our total revenue is up approximately 13%, August year to date, about $590,000. Gas, if you remember, by the way, when I did the budget assumed was a totaling 90% of 2019 levels. Obviously, our traffic has been exceeding that, and that's why you're seeing these numbers. The gas tax revenue, that is up approximately 8% or $200,000. Again, when I did the budget on that, the Department of Revenue gave me an estimate, and I used 97% of that number. The Department of Revenue will give me an update on our gas tax revenue projections at the end of this month, so I'll have a good sense of how we're going to be for the remainder of the year. For tolls versus 2019, again, pre-COVID, they're only down 2% or about $38,000, so we're almost there August year to date versus 2019. On the gas tax, it's only down 0.2% or $6,000 lower. So the traffic's back, we're getting back to the pre-COVID levels, and this doesn't show that because my budget assumed kind of a worst case scenario, but we're almost there. On the operating expense side, personnel services, I know it shows over $15,000, but on a quarterly basis, the painters that are on the Jamestown Bridge, we reclass them to the project costs. So there were well over $100,000 of payroll costs that are flowing through our P&L that on a quarterly basis gets reclassed. So we're really under on the personnel services side. On the contractual service side, that savings of $41,000. Again, when I built the budget, I assumed the worst case scenario for the Salis case. I assumed we would have to go to trial. Obviously, that was settled. So we're going to see positive variance on this line throughout the whole year because we just won't have those legal fees. Sorry, Bill.
That's a problem.
Sorry, Bill.
I'm not sorry, Bill. I'm not sorry, Bill.
Jeff sounded very sincere.
I don't think you want to.
On the other supplies and expenses, again, this shows that we're over approximately $91,000. Again, there's a quarterly reconciliation that takes place, and also postage. That typically happens either like the 1st or the 30th of the month. It just so happens that in the month of August, it is at the beginning of the month and at the end of the month. So that is just a timing issue. So there's no concern on that number as well. Insurance, I think I've already explained that in the past, but again, we assumed an increase of all of our insurance of about 15%. Our broker went out, did everything, they came in much lower, about a 4% total, so we'll see a positive variance throughout the year. The repairs and maintenance costs, that positive variance of $37,000 is, again, we put about $30,000 of miscellaneous costs to support the ATMS project. So far, we haven't spent those costs. I think in speaking to Steve Cahill, we may have about $8,000 to $10,000 on that line item for the year. So there should be a $20,000 positive variance. And on bridge inspections, that's all timing. Eric has been putting up those task orders about 30 to 45 days later than what we originally had put into the budget. But overall, based on the task orders that we have done, versus budget, there's about a $200,000 savings to the budget on those task orders alone. And that is it, unless anybody has any, oh, by the way, personnel expenses versus 2019, it's actually down by 10%, or about $140,000. So first, 2019, we're doing pretty well, and I'm attempting to put some schedules together, so you can start to look at that versus 2019, and also versus budget, as opposed to me just talking about it earlier.
And Jeff, if you could just add, you and I have discussed the potential savings from the conversion to AET on the labor side.
Yeah.
What your estimate is there in terms of what we'll save all in with benefits, et cetera.
It's about $500,000, and that is based on already going to, when we already went from 11 to 7.
Last
If I
year.
go back to 2019, where we had more collectors for that shift, plus more casuals, the savings are even greater. I have to kind of dig into that and kind of say versus 2019, but at least versus what we have today, it's about $500,000.
Per year?
Yes, annually.
That's wonderful. That's very good.
And that's with finding jobs for virtually everyone who wanted one
Correct.
in our existing staff.
So I assume that that included some attrition then?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and Maury, if we could get your report, that would be helpful.
Thank you,
very much,
Madam
Jeff.
Chair. Thank you. Eric stole some of my thunder on the AET conversion, but I do want you all to know that if you look around the room and see some bleary-eyed people and perhaps even that look like they're a little bit sleep deprived, we did not anticipate that in the week when we were going to hold the proverbial feet of the contractors to the fire to get this conversion done, we would also end up with an unnamed hurricane, essentially, that would require us to close the bridge. We closed both the Pell and the Jamestown for a period of, I think, about 2 hours and 2.5 hours, or just under that. But that prevented one of our contractors from getting onto the bridge, to the open road tolling lanes, to do what they needed to do. And despite all of that, we still, when the sun rose on last Friday morning after the last toll had been taken the night before, we had become all electronic throughout the plaza in both directions, as we promised the public. So it was important to me that we keep our promises, that we keep motorists informed. We've been trying to stay on message with the public as to what is happening. The one item that I have not really emphasized to the public, and you're hearing it now, and I think you heard it last month too, is that the pleasant surprise, I think, for the motorists is that in a matter of weeks, by December 10th at the latest, we're hoping maybe a little sooner than that, when we'll have these open road tolling lanes as double lanes. So Eric mentioned that. That will give us the ability to use these extreme outer lanes only for emergency purposes. But I think it will be a pleasant surprise for our commuters and the users of of the Pell Bridge, that there'll be double lanes in the middle. So we're pleased about that. We had to make up for lost time because of the storm. I just want you to know that the storm, did require us to close. We followed our protocols, and it all went very smoothly. I can honestly say, I think it's been made clear to me that people appreciate that safety is everything, because people don't complain when they know you have wind readings in the low 80s. They understand. They don't want to go over the bridge, so they appreciate when we close it, and we obviously close it for only the shortest period of time necessary until we get back into an area that we're comfortable, that we feel that everyone can traverse the bridges safely. The federal funding requests, Madam Chair, you asked about those. We too are anxiously awaiting the result of those. We understand that November we're in November now. We should be hearing on the RAISE grant. All of the requests we've made are very important to us. Obviously, there's one that's extremely expensive, but also critical, which is the dehumidification of the cables and the anchorages at our 92-year-old Mount Hope Bridge. So we are waiting for that. We have had visits from both of our U.S. senators. We are going to have a visit from Congressman Cicilline on November 19th. I spoke with Congressman Langevin the other day, and we're hoping that he's going to be visiting us too. We also have responded to the request from the state that we post on the website that they created for input as to where the ARP funds, how those funds should be spent, and we've submitted the conceptual study of suicide barrier and the other proposals. We've resubmitted them to bring those to the forefront for attention from the state in terms of getting some of these federal funds. We're looking for all of this. Some of these projects are critical. We have to revisit our capital plan with frequency. We know that some hard decisions will have to be made. We are counting on getting some of this federal money. Director Janeros?
Just a question. How does the congressional delegation input into like the raise process? Do they lobby the agency, or do they write letters, or what is it that they do for us?
They do. They did submit letters on our behalf, and they work on our behalf in Washington. And we hear also from the Federal Highway Administration, and that's the information that I am getting is that the RAISE grant process will hopefully we'll hear some results from that this month.
The process in Washington is very similar to the process in Rhode Island, when legislators have a particular financial interest in a project or funding, depending upon how much they put their shoulder into it.
Into the TIP process?
Yeah, everything. Into the budget process. You know, all the congressmen and senators have varying degrees of influence over the budget process, right? So while the evaluation is subjective, like the one that they did here for the Amogus contract, there are some additional influences that can be made at the committee level. We've been very fortunate having Jack Reed as the senior senator on the Appropriations Committee. He no longer is. So, he was moved over to Defense. So he still has some bit of influence on that, but not as much as maybe years past. But it's a process. Have you heard back from the awarding agency yet with questions? Do they have any questions on it?
No.
Okay. Now, how much are you requesting in the RAISE grant?
The dehumidification of Mount Hope is 35 million. Of that, there would be matching funds, so 25 million we would expect to get.
25. So the other 10, have you accounted for that?
It's in our capital budget.
It is.
It is.
Okay, so you will have the state funds to match.
We do.
Okay. Without asking for increases in your state funding, or with the existing state funds that you have?
With all
With your
existing
agency
funds.
funds.
Yeah.
Great. That's great.
It sure, if I may, what it helps us is, obviously with this federal funding,
Yeah.
it allows Eric to look at the other elements just on the capital plan
Yeah.
and see if they can be.
So the next question that you might hear from the awarding agency is if they were able to give you, let's say, instead of 35, if they were able to give you 28, let's say, would you be able to show demonstratively that you would be able to fill the other
Yes.
7?
Yep.
Okay, you follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
Just, that'll be probably the next step if you're heading toward a successful award.
Right. Depending upon what happens in Washington with this, with the infrastructure
Oh,
bill,
yes.
I mean, it does have a section in it which is the Bridge Investment Program.
Yeah.
We were asked, and our hearts all beat faster when we were asked about possibly bundling of projects. I mean, if we had our druthers, we'd do dehumidification of the Mount Hope,
Right.
dehumidification of the Pell as well. I mean, that would be standard practice today if one of these
Sure.
suspension bridges were built. Neither one of them has a dehumidification system, so we'd love to see dehumidification of Mount Hope, dehumidification of the Pell, and redecking of the Mount Hope would be the third component, which everyone knows is desperately
Sure.
needed. So, and that would be a, you know, if we're looking at like 100 million, and again, be still my heart if,
Yeah.
you know, if we could, if we could only get to that point. But we're working very aggressively to call attention to the urgency of these projects.
Yeah. We'll see.
Okay, and then, Madam Chair, you asked about the speed cameras. I see that as a priority for January of 2022 in the General Assembly session. And when I say priority, it's priority for attention to the issue of how do we deal with speed on the bridges. Clearly, the conventional methods of apprehending speeders and you know, doing that in a safe manner. The bridges don't lend themselves to the conventional methods. So we'll be at least having those discussions about whether cameras are the appropriate way to go or what other options are available to us. And then finally, I always, you know, want to note the good news. Really, our traffic is just, we're hitting it out of the park. We're almost there in comparison with 2019. We're 10% off. I think we're sustaining it a little bit longer into the year, into the off season, and you know, we are we're getting to the point. As recently as the day before the unnamed hurricane, we were at 129% of traffic same day in 2019. So you know, we're still you know, we're still we've got great numbers. At most, we're down 10% from 2019 in toll revenue, which is great.
Great.
In traffic, I should say.
Okay, any other questions or concerns? I thank everyone. I want to thank everyone here for the staff for pulling through on this automation. That was a big project, okay? I came in on Friday just to thank the tollers, okay? The collectors rather, who were, you know, so active the last 2 weeks because they had to literally go through every single car that went over this bridge. You know, there was nothing there. But I think it was a tremendous feat to go so smoothly. You know, I mean, I have not heard of one single complaint from the customers or anything like that, other than everybody's trying to rush in and get transponders now. But other than
That's
that,
good.
it's just been fantastic. And I want to, you know, congratulate everyone for a job well done. Very,
Yeah.
very well done.
Great job.
Okay. Other than that, I'd like to adjourn. All in
Second?
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Have a good week, everybody.
You too. Thank you.
Are we heading out?